I stood in the middle of my apartment, the one I had spent years saving for, and for the first time, it didn't feel like mine. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see the string lights flickering on the rooftop of the next building, where my brother's engagement party was already in full swing. The music floated through the night air, mixing with a faint scent of roses that the florist had delivered this morning, roses I hadn't ordered. I smoothed the sleeve of my silk blouse, more out of habit than vanity, and tried to breathe. My phone buzzed again on the kitchen counter. Another text from my cousin. "Congrats on giving the apartment for Ryan's engagement gift. So generous of you." I stared at the screen until the words blurred. Generous of me? I hadn't given anyone anything. No one had even asked me. My parents had decided, apparently at brunch last weekend, that my apartment would make the perfect start for my brother and his fiancée.
"It's only fair," they said.
"Ryan's the one getting married. You can always get another place." A laugh escaped my throat, sharp and humorless. I'd worked double shifts, eaten ramen for months, skipped vacations just to make this dream a reality, and now it was being handed away like some party favor. I grabbed my phone, my heels clicking against the hardwood, and for the first time in years, I dialed my mother. The phone rang twice before Mom picked up. Her cheerful voice was like nails on a chalkboard. "Sweetheart, we're just heading downstairs. Isn't this exciting?" I didn't answer right away. My silence must have said enough because her tone shifted. "Don't tell me you're upset about this. Ryan needs a place, and you're doing so well." Her words pulled me straight back to the night I walked out. I was 23 then, sitting at our old oak dining table, clutching a folder with my first job offer inside. I'd worked so hard for that interview. New suit from the clearance rack, resume rewritten a dozen times, hair straightened to perfection. I'd walked in there believing this was my moment. But when I told them I'd accepted the position and planned to move into a small apartment near the office, Dad's face darkened. "You don't need to live alone," he said flatly. "That's not how we raised you." "Dad, it's just across town. You're not throwing away money on rent. Stay here.
Save."
Besides, that neighborhood isn't safe for a young woman. I remember Ryan leaning back in his chair with that smirk that always got under my skin. "Come on, Danny. You're acting like a rebel over a tiny apartment. Be practical for once." My throat burned. They didn't see it, the independence, the chance to stand on my own 2 feet. Grandma was the only one who met my eyes. "Let her go," she said softly, sliding something across the table. It was her spare keychain, a little silver feather charm attached. A woman should have a place that's hers. That night, I packed my car. Mom cried. Dad didn't come out of his study to say goodbye. And Ryan? He just shrugged, like my leaving was inevitable, like I'd be back in a few months. But I didn't come back. I worked, saved, scraped by, and when I finally bought this apartment 2 years ago, I slipped that silver feather onto the new keys. My quiet victory. And now they wanted to take it away like none of that ever happened. After I left that night, I moved into the smallest apartment I could afford, a shoebox with peeling paint, thin walls, and a single window that barely caught the morning sun. But it was mine. I worked my entry-level job by day, then picked up freelance projects at night. Weekends were for grocery runs, laundry, and learning everything I could about budgeting, investing, and real estate. I still remember eating peanut butter sandwiches for dinner just to save enough for my first emergency fund. My boss at the marketing firm, Linda, noticed how I stayed late to finish campaigns no one else wanted. She was the first person who told me I had a knack for strategy. "You think like an owner," she said once, tapping her pen on my presentation. "You ever thought about starting something of your own?" The idea scared me, but it also lit a fire. I started consulting for small businesses on the side, building websites, managing ad campaigns. The money trickled in at first, just enough to cover an extra bill or two, but I kept at it. Linda became my quiet mentor, guiding me through contracts, pricing, and how to say no to clients who undervalued my work. There were nights I cried into my pillow from exhaustion, wondering if I'd made a huge mistake leaving home. There were mornings I stared at my bank balance, terrified I'd never get ahead. But then came the small wins. The first client who renewed for a second campaign. The first time I paid off a credit card in full. The first time I walked into a bank and got pre-approved for a mortgage alone, without anyone co-signing for me. When I finally signed the papers for this apartment, I didn't tell my family. Not because I didn't want to, but because I wanted to enjoy the moment without their voices in my head. I moved in, painted the walls myself, and placed Grandma's little silver feather charm on the kitchen counter before hanging it on my keyring. I posted a single photo on Instagram, a shot of the sunlight streaming through my new living room window. No caption, no bragging. Just a quiet celebration. Since then, I've kept things subtle. A modest car, simple clothes, nothing flashy. My family thought I was just getting by, and honestly, I preferred it that way. Until now. Now they were using my silence against me, assuming that because I never flaunted my success, it was theirs to control. I looked around the apartment. The framed photos of my clients' successful businesses, the books on entrepreneurship stacked on my coffee table, the scent of the expensive candle I'd splurged on last week, and I felt something shift in my chest. This wasn't just a place to live. This was proof of everything I'd fought for. And I wasn't about to let anyone take it away. By the time I reached the lobby, my heels felt like they were nailing each step into the marble floor. The elevator ride down was silent except for the soft hum of the motor. I caught my reflection in the mirrored doors, steady eyes, chin high. When the doors opened, I was met with a wave of laughter and perfume. The party had spilled into the courtyard, fairy lights strung between trees, a champagne tower glittering under the glow. Ryan was at the center of it all, grinning with his arm around his fiancée, Lily. My parents stood proudly nearby, soaking in the compliments. I walked straight to them. "Danny," Mom beamed, air kissing my cheek, as if nothing was wrong. "You look lovely. Isn't this perfect?" "We just told everyone about the apartment." I glanced around. Half the room was already buzzing with the news. "Funny," I said, my voice calm, even warm. "No one told me." Dad cleared his throat. "We were going to. But it was such a nice surprise for Ryan and Lily." Ryan grinned sheepishly. "Come on, Danny. Don't be mad. You know I'll take care of the place." I felt the sting rise in my throat, but I swallowed it. "No tears tonight. You think this is yours to take care of?" I asked quietly. That got everyone's attention. Conversations around us slowed. Some even stopped entirely. I took a slow breath, my voice carrying now. This apartment isn't a gift from Mom and Dad. It isn't part of anyone's dowry. I bought it. Every square inch. With my money. My name is the only one on the deed. The silence was deafening. Mom blinked. "But we thought you were just renting." "You thought wrong." I stepped closer to Ryan, my heels clicking against the stone. "I worked for years to have this. Late nights. Double shifts. No safety net. This apartment is mine, and no one, not you, not Mom, not Dad, gets to decide what happens to it." Ryan's fiancée looked stricken, whispering something under her breath. Ryan opened his mouth, then closed it again. Dad's jaw tightened. "Danny, this is not the place." "Oh, it's exactly the place." I gestured to the courtyard, the champagne, the flowers. "You've all been celebrating my hard work without even asking me if I was okay with it. You didn't just cross a line, you erased it." The words hung there like smoke. For a moment, I thought Dad might argue. But then I saw it, the flicker of something in his eyes. Guilt. I straightened my shoulders. "You can finish your party. Enjoy yourselves. But tomorrow morning, I want everything cleared out. This apartment stays mine." I didn't wait for a reply. I turned and walked back toward the elevator, my pulse thundering in my ears. Behind me, I heard the murmurs start, the disbelief, the shock, the dawning realization that they had underestimated me. And for the first time that night, I smiled. The next morning, my phone buzzed nonstop. Missed calls, unread messages, even a voice note from Mom saying we needed to talk this out. I let them wait. Instead, I made myself coffee in my favorite chipped mug, opened the balcony doors, and let the sunlight pour in. By the time I finally answered Mom's call, I was sitting cross-legged on my sofa, hair in a bun, completely calm. "Danny," Mom said, her voice strained. We didn't mean to hurt you. Can we come over? I took a slow sip before answering. You already are over. You've been over for years, over my boundaries, over my decisions.
But yes.
Come by. 30 minutes later, my parents and Ryan stood in my living room, looking out of place. Without the noise of last night's party, the apartment felt bigger, sharper, like it belonged to me in every possible way. I stayed standing, one hand resting on the kitchen counter. I'm going to make this simple, I said. This apartment isn't up for discussion. If you want to be part of my life, you respect that. From now on, no decisions are made for me without me. Mom's lips pressed into a thin line, but she nodded. And Ryan, I turned to him. You're my brother, and I want you to be happy. But if you want a place to start your life with Lily, you'll have to earn it, the way I did. Save, sacrifice, hustle. It'll mean more when it's yours. Ryan's jaw worked, but he didn't speak. I softened my tone. I'm not shutting you out. If you want advice on how I built this, I'll give it. I'll show you how to budget, how to invest. But you don't get to take shortcuts through my life's work. For a long moment, no one said anything. Then Dad nodded slowly, almost grudgingly. You've done well for yourself, he said quietly. I didn't realize how much. That's because you never asked, I replied, but there was no bite in my voice this time. Just truth. Something shifted in the room then, not warm, not entirely healed, but lighter, like a window cracked open after a storm. Mom took a step closer. We'll do better, she said softly. I'll do better. I believed her. But this time, I wasn't waiting around for their approval. When they finally left, the apartment was quiet again. The only sound was the hum of the fridge and the distant city traffic. I walked slowly through each room, my fingers trailing along the walls I had painted myself. The flowers from the party were still sitting on the counter. Too many, too fragrant, like they were trying too hard to erase what had happened. I pulled one out of the vase and tossed it into the trash. Then I reached into the drawer by the door and pulled out my keyring. The little silver feather charm glinted softly in the morning light. I remember that night at the dining table, Grandma's hand closing over mine as she slid the keychain toward me. A woman should have a place that's hers. I smiled. A small, private smile meant only for me and for her memory. Everything I had gone through, the fights, the hunger, the late-night tears, had led me here. And now, finally, they all knew who I was. I sat down on the couch, grabbed my journal, and wrote one line in bold ink across the page. This apartment is more than four walls. It's the proof that I will never let anyone else write my story for me again. I closed the journal, set it on the coffee table, and stood by the window, looking out over the city I'd claimed as mine. The air felt clearer, lighter, like it carried a promise. This wasn't revenge. This was reclamation. And as I locked the door behind me on my way out, the feather charm jingled softly, a reminder that I'd fought for this life, and I'd keep fighting for it. Because now, I wasn't just Danny, the quiet daughter who went along with everyone's plans. I was Danny, the woman who built everything she has and who will never be silenced again.